the Trusty Ape guy again. Over at the Trusty Ape channel. And basically, I'm going to run this stream while I'm multitasking, doing some chores here, and try to keep an eye on the chat. And I have a StreamYard stream set up, so if anybody wants to come in and talk, I've got a little bit. We can do that. I'll just pop over the StreamYard and start that stream, but otherwise I'll just be here reviewing whatever's in the watch later list while I'm doing some other stuff. And Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hey, happy Wednesday. Good to see you. Happy hump day. I wonder if we should go through these. No, that's probably going to be more of a deep dive. We'll go into this. Let's see, what do I have here? All right, I like this question. Inspiring philosophy. Can faith get you anything? Let's go for that one.
Come with me on a day in my life as a tech content creator living in LA.
I woke up and found out there was a pop-up going on near me.
In Mark 11, Jesus declared, "I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." We find similar statements in Matthew and John. The problem is, I'm sure you can think of many things that you have asked for in prayer and have not received from God. But the verses suggest that we should be able to ask for anything and receive it. Non-Christians use these verses to claim Jesus is a liar.
When I was a Christian, I asked so many things in Jesus' name. I had faith. I had so much faith. And those things just didn't happen. If you're a Christian and you've ever prayed in Jesus' name and those things didn't happen, why don't you consider Jesus a liar?
All things for which you pray, they will be granted you.
Yeah, and it does say that, right? Like, so it's not a illegitimate argument there.
Guarantee is outright. If one asks, one receives. The fact that Jesus' prayer-related guarantees are outright and unqualified aggravates the problem of unanswered prayer.
But as it typically is with issues like this, we cannot interpret the Bible as if it was written with our cultural expectations in mind. Jesus' statements were not meant to be
cultural expectations. Acting like it's just a cultural expectation that if we say whatever you pray for, you'll receive. And it's like, oh, well, it's because of your culture that you believe that like what are you talking about, bro? Sandy, prayer doesn't work, but karma is nothing to mess with. Yeah, good point.
Understood, as if we could demand anything from God that we desire. And the biblical context demonstrates this. Let's first look at another passage in Mark. In chapter 6, we read of John the Baptist being beheaded at Herod's birthday banquet. Before this happened, Herodias' daughter danced.
Again, just for anybody just now arriving, as I said earlier, I'm doing this kind of to pass the time, but I do have a StreamYard stream set up. If anybody does want to chat, let me know and I'll pop over there. So good to see you, Sandy.
For Herod and his guests. And Herod was so pleased that he said, "Whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half of my kingdom." The question we may be tempted to ask is, why didn't she immediately start drawing up borders of her new kingdom and instead only ask for John's head? Why not take half the kingdom if that was a literal offer? Because it went without being said that it was hyperbolic, not literal. As Walter Welzel.
Oh, it's hyperbolic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They always, when it suits them, they're like, well, of course that's hyperbole. But, you know, if you will believe that like the Bible is like the perfect inerrant word of God or something, then nothing in there should be hyperbolic, right? I mean, that's...
Mark Strauss say, the words "up to half my kingdom" may have been a kind of proverbial way of expressing open-handed generosity and were not to be taken literally. As they note, we find similar language in the Hebrew Bible. Offering half of one's kingdom was an expression which meant that a person wanted to bestow a generous gift. But it came with the understanding that the gift had to be within reason. They could not actually expect half of the kingdom. A similar meaning was understood in the culture when it came to Jesus' statements that we could ask for anything and it would be given to us. Given that Jesus is king, his statements were understood with the same hyperbolic meaning of a king granting favor to his loyal followers. It is not that Jesus was claiming.
So he was just being hyperbolic when he said, if you pray, I'll answer your prayers, right? Like, so why would you pray? Why would you pray if that's just hyperbole? Almost couldn't say it. Sandy says, it would appear some folks have gone off to a private watch party, but I have no clue what they're watching as the stream was garbled and I was outside cleaning the pond. Yeah, I did see a notification for that. It was kind of weird. Been doing some different stuff over there lately. I don't know if there's some like in-house drama or something. I was kind of hearing a few people talking about kind of vaguely some in-house drama. I just chose not to get involved. But I was hanging out with Wildheart this morning, so whatever.
He was a genie, and he would grant our every wish. He was saying that as our king, we, his disciples, can ask for anything that would be in accord with his will. This, of course, makes sense with the teaching style of Jesus, as he often spoke in hyperbolic language. As James T. O'Connor said, Jesus often spoke in hyperbolic language, which very few would interpret as being his final or full word on an issue. No one says Jesus was speaking literally when he said we need to get the log out of our own eye, or that the Pharisees were straining a gnat and swallowing a camel, or that we would always have to give up our clothing if someone demanded it. These are hyperbolic statements meant to drive home a deeper meaning.
Yeah, well, of course. Like, if you had a log in your eye, you'd probably be dead. Right? It must be hyperbolic. Oh, well, yeah, there are fractions within their community. As far as I know, not the source this time. Well, good, that's good to hear. Hey, Todd, good to see you. Yeah, I just, like I said, I didn't observe any of it. I just heard people talking, so I don't want to spread gossip, especially if it's just, But yeah, that was kind of the impression I got too.
The last one. Jesus is saying that we should make an effort to be generous and go above and beyond what is required. It isn't a command to always be taken advantage of. If we look at the full context in Mark and the parallel passage in Matthew, we see hyperbolic language and imagery that was typical for Jesus. For example, he said, "Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him." Donald Hagner notes this is hyperbolic. Jesus wasn't saying that having faith means one is like a...
Love how he uses Star Wars here. That's great. For anybody just joining, like Todd or anybody, as I said earlier, I have a StreamYard stream ready to go if anybody wants to chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to do this. But I'll switch over to that if anybody wants to come in. So this one guy says, "What's this scope? I'm bored. My kid is working for me today, so yay." Child labor, Sandy. Yeah. Well, it's healthy. I mean, to an extent, like chores and stuff like that, or if they want to start earning money, as long as it's reasonable, as long as it's fair, you teach them how to deal with employers.
Jedi from Star Wars, and that one can move objects with their mind. Only that having faith in God will allow us...
Your daddy believed in it? Yeah, mine did too. He never forced me to work though. But he would take me out on jobs with him, and he would, I was encouraged to help him. Like, we cut firewood when I was younger, because my dad sold firewood on the side, and so there were a few times I helped him with that, or I'd help him with stacking, and he'd give me a few bucks for that, stuff like that.
To do great things. Jesus does not offer his disciples magical powers to do whatever they please, or to perform extraordinary feats for their own sake, such as the withering of a fig tree. All must be related to the purpose of God that is in the process of being realized. Hagner brings up a good point with his last statement. Prayer is meant to be about the purpose of God. It is not, as many assume, a wish list we bring to God for fulfilling all our desires. prayer was and still is.
There we go. Yeah. So he's gonna do that. Like, oh yeah, you're supposed to like pray to God just like because he wants you to talk to him. You're not actually supposed to ask him for stuff. You can tell him like what your desires are or whatever, but he's not necessarily going to give any of them to you because that's all hyperbolic. But he does want you to talk to him. Apparently, I guess that's the Sandy said, "Oh, my daddy didn't pay us. We worked because the consequences of not doing our chores was very, very unpleasant." Oh yeah, kid makes more than makes $20 an hour more than more people or most people, I guess. Yeah. That's a decent wage. My first job I was doing concrete construction, and I was a kid, and because I was the boss's grandson or whatever in law, I made twice as much as a lot of the skilled guys who are out there, and I was basically a freaking apprentice, but they were working a lot of illegals and stuff like that. But I hated the job. I did not appreciate it at all. And as far as chores go, like I was always taught, like as a kid, I wasn't even like paid to do chores. It was like there was certain things I was just expected to do, like around the house, as far as just like putting in my share, like pulling my weight. So like my mom would have me do the dishes and stuff like that. Like it was just a regular thing. I didn't get paid for any of that. But she wasn't like expecting me to do excessive crap or anything like that. Tog is a good dad. Yeah. Tog says, I was just asking about the effect of alchemy in with religion and how people have to be in the right substitution to be the substitution. I'm not sure. Trying to think of alchemy with religion. Do you mean substitution? It's not given to you if it's not by his will. Oh yeah. The whatever you're praying for, right? Yeah. But he says like whatever, like if you ask you will receive or something to that effect. Like we just pulled it up a few minutes ago. If it's not by God's will, the pentagram will be inverted. So you'll get the opposite. So it's like you'll get like if you ask for a child to like take your child away or something. Sandy, I did start working for money at age 14, but we don't want to discuss that. Yeah, I think my mom did too. Actually, she was a little bit younger than that. Yeah, that concrete job, I was about 15 when I did that. And I did odd jobs before that, like painting and moving furniture and stuff like that. But they weren't like regular jobs or anything. My first regular job, I got like an actual paycheck, steady for a couple weeks. I only lasted a couple weeks. And Tog says, yeah, my kids don't get paid chores too. Yeah, they have to learn to like have some like responsibility for themselves. Like, you dirty up the house, you dirty up the dishes, like you clean some of that. Like, people shouldn't be cleaning up after you because that creates entitlement problems later on.
Mostly about submitting to God and his will. If one prays to God, they are assuming his will is relevant to the topic at hand. After all, we are coming to him for guidance, so his will should be front and center. It is also important to notice that Jesus isn't telling this to just anyone, but to his disciples, people who have already submitted to his will, and therefore are expected to ask for things that are in line with the will of God. As Charles Correll says, although 21:22 might seem like a blanket promise that God will do whatever his disciples ask, the qualifier in prayer reminds the reader of Jesus' teaching about prayer in 6:5-15, in which the disciple is to ask that God's name be regarded as holy, his kingdom arrive, his will be done, and so forth. Thus, Jesus' earlier teaching about the prayer of the true disciple should prevent modern exploitation of the passage to promote a conception of God as a genie in a bottle who must fulfill all our wishes.
Well, he's not a genie in a bottle, he's just a genie in outer space. So who was saying that, like, was it G-Man or something? I was making fun of somebody for using that. Like, because if they say, like, well, God's not like a genie, I'm like, he literally is. Like, in like, the whole creation story, he is, like, a literal genie. Like, poof, here's everything. Like, and then later on they're like, but he doesn't work that way for people. And it's like, okay, but he can. He could. He chooses not to. So it's God's will that he doesn't, like, make miracles happen and stuff like that. Like, to prove himself or whatever. So, in theory, he could. He just won't.
It is like if I were to go to a judge and ask for something. The assumption would be that he would only grant what the law could allow. It would make no sense to ask for permission from a judge to sell illegal drugs.
Well, the judge has to do what is lawful, right? But the judge is not omnipotent either or omniscient, right? So he can't do anything that's unlawful, like, he shouldn't. He ought not to do it, and that's not to say that judges never break the law, because, obviously they do, right? But also, he can't do anything that is beyond his power to do. But nothing is beyond God's power to do. Tog says, Genie does others' will? How is God performing others' will if it's his will? No, but they're saying, like, basically the argument is like, oh, well, it just doesn't work that way. And then that's like, why not? Because if he said in one passage that if you ask me for something and you're faithful, then I'll give it to you. But then they go, oh, no, I was just being hyperbolic. Like, and then you could come up with a number of explanations for, like, why you didn't get that thing. Like, you weren't sufficiently righteous, or it wasn't in God's will or God's design or something like that, right? But that's not what it says in the book, right? You have to add that on. That's your interpretation. It's like exegesis or something, right? Tog, evil can't stand in the place of good. I hear Daddy Trump is angry, but who cares, Sandy? Yeah. Oh, the plane interview was great. He was like, oh, I just don't want to answer questions on the back of a plane. It's like, what? What are you talking about? Tog says only a genie is bound to God to give. Genies are us when that happens. Okay. I mean, so you're saying that if God was going to grant the prayer, he would do it through a person? Is that kind of what I'm getting from that? Like, it wouldn't be answered by him, but he would have it answered by a servant or whatever?
Even if a judge emailed me and said I could come to the courthouse and ask for anything, the obvious understanding would be that I could ask for anything that the law would allow. Likewise, when we pray to God, it should come with the assumption he will only grant us things that can accord with his will. Jesus did not...
Look, it's like, okay, so in this example where you're saying, like, what the law allows, right? Okay, let's say you're talking about, like, a civil judgment, right? Like, you sue somebody and they owe you X amount of money. And then, so by the law, they could only give you, grant you so much money that this person has to pay you for whatever the crime was, I can't even think of a good example right now, but you get what I'm saying. And so they're, let's say they have to give you $200. But then is it in that person's power, right? Because if they can't give you the $200, right, the government isn't required to reimburse you. That person would have to, like, find some other way to fulfill that judgment, right? It's not in their power to give you $200, right? They have to go work it off or something like that. But that's because they have limited power. So again, I just think the analogy fails. I think it's a bad one. That's where I'm at. Tog says that happens. Yes, look at Moses and the prophets. Okay. Well, I don't know. Moses, I think, is one of the contentious stories, though.
Just a license to literally ask for anything. We even see this explicitly stated in 1 John 5. And this is the confidence that we have toward him, that if we ask for anything, according to his will, he hears us. Notice the verse says we can ask for anything according to his will.
The truth is, behind closed doors, the P word became my secret
so
sin.
that was,
and for the next 17...
Thing according to his...
That was a different verse, though. So this is not the same one that he showed earlier, 1 John.
Will. In Jesus' time, it was understood prayer was an act of submission to God. you wouldn't ask for literally anything, but for things that align with God's will. For example, you may ask for a new job or a new house, but what you're really asking is, please let such a reality be your will, God. Prayer is supposed to come with the knowledge that since God is morally perfect, He will only grant such a thing if it increases goodness and virtue and brings Him glory. Notice in Matthew 7:10,
Yeah, that's kind of what they always say, is that it's like, okay, like the His will be done thing, or what's the other one that they will say? Like if you are willing, or it's presented as like a question, like if it be your will, but they're like pleading for it, right? Like that's kind of the type of prayer I got. Like when I was trying to pray to God earnestly, like it was at times when I was in like emotional crisis and distress, and I was like pleading for relief, like that's honestly when I would turn to prayer.
see Jesus say, "If you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask Him?" Notice the verse is qualified by saying, God will only give good things, which was understood to be things that brought about the will of God. A new house might seem like a good thing for you, but perhaps God knows it will make you greedy, and so will not grant such a request, because it ultimately is not good.
How would
Prayer
just having a house in and of itself, how would that make you greedy? Like, just think, okay, what if it was like a very modest house? Would that necessarily make somebody greedy just because they, like, that doesn't make sense to me.
presupposes
I don't know. It should be said, His will has been done. TBF, because Christ has risen. Oh, to be fair, because Christ has risen, to be honest. If you're already greedy, it's the problem. Well, I would agree, but like, and like, those, the evangelists and stuff, televangelists or whatever, who like, they've got, like a mansion and a vacation house and a yacht and all of this stuff. Like, they're the greedy ones, but they're the ones telling people that if you just pray for it, then you can be like them, But is that what they're doing? Because I don't know. I'm just saying that for me, I've never, like, prayed for material things myself. Like, that wasn't the way it would work. But, like, in the case of getting a home, like, if you're, like, homeless, like couch surfing or something, and you're like praying to get a home, that's just like a basic necessity. You're not necessarily greedy, but like the implication is that if you got a home out of that situation, you would just become greedy, which I don't think that logically follows.
that one is committed to God's will and seeing it done. Craig Keener notes that only a small number of sages were considered pious enough to ask God for anything, as they would have asked for things in line with God's will. Such a call to believing prayer supposes a heart of piety submitted to God's will, although Jesus states,
What about like sick people who pray for God to heal them? Is that like necessarily, he doesn't even seem to go like touch on situations like that. First comes pride, then comes greed. Yeah, I think I've heard that before.
the promise graphically. He implicitly addresses only disciples.
See, and you would think like if you're prideful, like you would like not be attributing that thing like to God. It would be like your own, you would think it was your own accomplishment. Like if you prayed for a house and you got the house and you said, "Oh, I got that house," right? But when in reality, like according to your, that actually God gave you that house, right? Like would be the proper logic.
Who will seek the good of God's kingdom and provision for their basic needs. Jesus' promise is for the righteous, people who share kingdom values in 6:19-34, who ask God to supply their basic needs and request concerning the kingdom. We see this in how Jesus taught his disciples to pray. Notice it's not for magical powers, wealth, or earthly power, but daily sustenance, avoiding temptation, and for his will to be done. If one is praying to God, one is praying for things that accord to his will, not our own. So despite what skeptics claim, Jesus did not
But if you can't know the will of God, you would just be guessing. Like, so it would still be based on your own desire, like for your own will. But you're just guessing. You're like, well, I don't know. I want it, and I hope God wants it. So now I got to pray to God about it. But God already knows what you're thinking anyway. He just wanted you to talk to him, right? I mean, that's kind of. Tog says you align with God to get it if honorable. If you get the house with the wickedness, did God help get that house? Right, like G-Man. I would say no. No home for me then. Poor Todd.
lie because they do not understand the purpose of
I think you can do it. If you work hard and you persevere, I think you can do it.
prayer. These statements were given in Jesus' typical hyperbolic language and are calls to align ourselves with the will of God. Faith and prayer are not magical powers, but ways to bring us closer to God and His way of thinking. If you want to know more about the purpose of prayer, see this video we have on our channel. You made it to the end of this video, which means this message
Oh, which means that I can remove it from the watch later list. Okay. I actually haven't watched this. I found it by accident. We're going to see what this guy's all about.
Okay, Alaska Airlines. I get it. You're obsessed with me.
Bro.
This is B, the R word, with women, friends, and jobs. I don't want to earn a house. I want to be given one. So that's the problem in itself. Well, then, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Tog. Got any rich relatives? You just go squat in there after they, kick the bucket. I guess that's why salvation is free. Yeah, then you can just live in the house eternally.
We gotta freaking talk. We gotta talk. My goal here is so you don't have to suffer. Too many of you guys suffer. Maybe you got a bad friend group. Retard max your friend group, okay? Seriously, if you have a friend group that you just don't like being around, don't ask any more questions. Don't look for any more advice. Simply do a 360 and moonwalk away from your friend group. Seriously, just moonwalk out of there. Who cares? Well,
you know what? And I blame the audience again because I didn't remind myself. I gotta check the stream because it might be jacked up for all I know. Oh, it was that one. Okay, my bad. Let's make sure. Oh, it's actually working today. Good. Okay. I was like, I should really be checking these when I start to make sure the screen's in the right, orientation or whatever. Because sometimes they get jacked up. So. And then Tog said he meant 180. Oh, yeah, okay.
seriously, just moonwalk out of there. Who cares? Well, I've known these guys. Dude, if your friends are narcissistic, if they are demeaning, if you don't get like a good feeling when you're near someone, if in your bones your back starts ache, do a 360 and moonwalk away. Don't think about God. Don't think about religion.
Oh yeah, because he keeps saying 360. Yeah, he's like, but you'll just end up walking right back to where you were if you do a 360.
Don't think about what you saw on YouTube. Just stop hanging out with these people. Retard max it. Retard max your friend group. Deal with the repercussions later on. Okay? There's not going to be any. Oh my God, Eli. I sometimes get tired in the middle of the day and I feel like I need a little nap. Dude, retard max, drink some orange juice. Sometimes you just need to have a little bit of orange juice.
And a cigar. That's a nice hefty cigar there too. This portion of the video says relationships, but he's actually got chapters in this.
But they said sugar was bad for me, man. They said I couldn't eat all this fruit and all this honey and all of this cane sugar, even drink a Mexican Coke. What do you have there, Eli? Is that a little bougie barbecue? Why, yes, my friend, it is. And I like nicotine. But let me tell you, man, too many people thinking this and that. Can't drink the freaking sugar. You need a cup of coffee in the middle of the day. Stop counting your cups of coffee. Oh, I can't go past 2. Oh, Brian Johnson, that measures his son's boners, told me that I can't have caffeine after 1 p.m. Or my...
What? Who is he talking about?
Sleep.
The only Brian Johnson I can think of right now is like the dude from AC/DC. But I think isn't he dead?
Is going to go to...
Oh, no, he just lost his voice.
Shit. Dude, what are we doing here? Chew grass, baby. Breathe smoke. A lot of you guys, look, we're talking as friends, but listen, at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. You got a retard, Max.
That was just epic, right? Yeah. You can't argue with shit like that.
Okay, retard max your relationships. You don't like the girl you're with? I mean, the girl you're with, just because you think in your mind that you've spent, let's say, 5 years together. When is a long-term relationship really begin to be a long-term relationship? Probably three years, after that 18 months honeymoon stage, kind of settle in, start to get to know each other. And you're like, wow, I don't really like this person. I feel like there's a bunch of beautiful Latinas out there. And
I've actually been in that situation before. I can sympathize, yes.
And I just want to smell them. I don't like the way this girl is smelling. Okay, very simple. Retard max it. Break up with her. Now, you're going to go back and forth. Oh, sunk cost. It's a sunk cost. I spent 3 years. It feels like an investment.
With hotels and vacation
Well,
rentals,
it's
Booking.com
definitely
has
an
something
investment
for
of time
everyone.
and energy, if nothing else.
Spent 3 years.
And you probably, more than likely put a good deal of money into that in 3 years too.
It feels like an investment. Dude, no, this is your life. Your whole life is just happening. So if you stay with someone that you don't really like, maybe you're not really attracted to, and you just keep wasting time and you
Yeah, he's basically just like, trust your gut. Like, as soon as you get a bad feeling, walk away. I guess is like his whole thing here. Yeah. That would just, like, you would never, like, invest in anything if that was the logic. Doesn't make sense.
looking for answers. This is a big trap. I would wager that 99% of dudes...
maybe, I guess if it's like that red pill thing where they're, trying to psych you up to be like, oh no, like your whole, everything you've been taught to believe is a lie, or, like one of those types of deals. So he's just like, he's basically like going like full throttle the other way. Motherfucker doesn't know how not to be a problem and nitpick others.
always look outside of themselves for confirmation on the choices that they should make. The 1%, the retard maxer, does what he wants. Just does.
What does he mean by maxing? Like, I don't, like, so he's saying that you should be fully hard R-word? Like, that's what he's saying? Like, you should just act stupid? And I don't even know what he's trying to get at.
He wants. If he doesn't like something, he doesn't like the friend group, bye-bye friend group, I'm leaving. I don't care about
it's just buzzword,
the consequences of leaving. I don't feel good, so I put it down, okay? If I don't like this woman, I don't look to religion. I don't look to anyone else. I don't look to some red pill. I say, okay, I've had enough. I'm sorry. It's come to this, but I must go. I must pack my bags. I must be out of here.
But all of that, like, it would require being, like, self-aware to a certain degree. Like, most people aren't even probably really that self-aware to be able to know. You've got to analyze, like, why am I feeling this way? Is it really the other person? Is it something that I'm, like, not seeing or something that I'm, because it could often be, like, an internal problem, I think. So... Oh, is that Sandy going out? Well, goodbye. Oh, you're just talking about the video again. I don't know.
Another big trap is you're just waiting. You're waiting for things to happen to you, man. I know so many guys, they're like, they just wait. Rule 1 in our group by the prophet Fabian said, they always come back. The women...
Who is the prophet Fabian?
Come back, you know...
Who is that?
What else also comes back? The sunny days. Like, it's gonna snow. The sun will come back. It'll just do what it's supposed to do. The women will come back. I had a girl come back after 9 years. I even had a crush when I was in church. I was probably 9 years old at the time. Dude, I had her follow me on Instagram recently. It's been over 20 years. She still came back.
That's cool. I mean, I've got like people that I knew in childhood that I have on social media, but like that's like a parasocial relationship. Like we used to hang out in grade school, and like now we occasionally comment on each other's like Facebook posts or something. Okay.
Like what? Dude, they always come back. The good days come back. You have bad days, okay? You're going to have another good day. You might be in a weird mental state. Big freaking deal. You'll get out of that weird mental state. And also, a little side note is that we put way too much focus on mental health, okay? Most of you, 99% of people don't have mental health issues. Heartbreak is normal. Heartbreak means you're healthy. Dealing with anxiety, normal. Dealing with, like, if you have schizophrenia, that's not normal. If you have severe chronic depression, where your brain is just, it ain't right, man. It ain't right. That could be mental health. Most of you guys are depressed from the way you're living, because you're living in a trap. You're living in a prison of your own design. Your willingness, your learned helplessness. So you need to retard max your way out of that. So anyway.
I just want to point out that this channel does not condone or endorse the views this man is espousing. But also, I mean, there may be some point to that. Maybe some people overemphasize like whatever they're going through, like, in a particular time in their life, like they're going through a loss. Be like, okay, understand that people, have to process loss and stuff like that, and it can make you depressed for a time. But then if that depression lasts, or is, so severe that it's like detrimental to, your livelihood, then, maybe, that's but I mean, I think, generally we have such a push towards better mental health services now because it has been so like lacking in the past, right? Like, so now we say that a lot of these problems that people used to, like, say, get prescribed drugs for, say, oh, maybe there's other like options in therapy or something like that where they could improve it without, having to take the drugs. So I don't know. Yeah. Like, I just think we should definitely pursue mental health services if we're feeling like we're having those issues, right? Like, that's something that's internal. Nobody else can tell you whether you're depressed or not. I think it was like a Robin Williams quote where he's like, people don't fake depression, they fake being happy, So, yeah.
They always come back. But a lot of times, you guys are stuck in this trap of, like, waiting. You're waiting for her to come back instead of getting on with it. You're waiting for someone else to invite you out. I realized that right there. That's probably the biggest tell of an NPC. The non-player character. The one that just is scripted. He doesn't really go outside of the script. He just kind of waves at you. Hey, how you doing? If you're an NPC, it means you don't make things happen.
The wait is for God? Oh, is it for God? Yeah, Waiting. Well, I think he's talking about being like complacent, like in your day to day or whatever. I think that's more what he's talking about.
Like when you go into work, why are you not talking to that girl, saying, "Hey, my name is Josh. Hey, my name's Eli. You know, I just started working here. It's nice to meet you. How you doing?" You know, just a little banter.
It's just the feeling of depression. Is that when God walks away? Some would say so. Right. I guess anything negative, according to some worldviews, would be just the absence of God.
Eventually, you make yourself known, and you get things happening. You invite it. Everyone's waiting for someone else to invite them out. Everyone's waiting for someone else to talk to them, to give them an opportunity. Dude, it's a bad place to be. It's not the way. And so, really retard maxing. You're not waiting for the good days or bad days to have. You're not waiting for the opportunities. You're not waiting for the girl to come back. You are going forward, because waiting is a trap. Just sitting there waiting is a trap. If you feel like anything trapped,
well, it depends. I mean, like, you know, patience is a virtue, right? Like, so in certain situations, like if you're a hunter, right, and you want to get, like, you know, like sometimes the best way to get your to get your prey, if you're a hunter, is to sit and wait for them to come to you rather than go out and chase them. So it's not, I don't know, like I think this is like lacking a lot of nuance here.
if you don't,
But I guess this is supposed to be like motivational or something for people who are, you know, lacking that.
like where you live, you start like scheming your move. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here, and you do it. You actually do it. Oh, I hate my job. It's the man of little faith. It's the man that doesn't really see himself as powerful, that doesn't believe that he could quit his shitty job. Listen, this is your life, dude. This is your freaking life. Your life is on the line. Your thumos is on the line. If you keep working a job that you absolutely hate, oh, what is it? Because you listen to so much David Goggins? Like, embrace the suck. Who's going to carry the boats? You listen to too much Jocko Willink, Lex Friedman. You listen to all the Jews on these podcasts.
The Jews? Did you say Jews?
Yes. Do the hard work. So what? So you can pay the government so that you can be a slave? So that you can be unhappy? You can give more to the banks? Like, what are we doing here? This is our life.
At Olive
Okay.
Garden, we're all about more craveable classics and more made-from-scratch sauces, which begs the question.
So it's just the willingness of the people to abide. It's real. You abide with.
Tog said shouldn't quit a shit job without a replacement. First wisdom would say, yeah. Yeah, and I don't think he's saying that, but he's saying, like, start looking today, that's pretty solid advice, but it's like, entwined with just gobbledygook, I don't know.
Traps that you've given yourself. I'm telling you, if you don't like where you live, you start scheming. I had to do this once before. I needed more money, okay? I had a security job. I needed more money. I go online, Craigslist, bartending positions near me. I come across one that says, you must have bartending experience. I said, fuck that. And I've always been a little retarded. So during this day, it came fully out of me, where I went to the bar. I said,
Yeah, like here you'd have to have my first MILF experience. What the fuck? This dude is just all over the place. Christian Carpenter, good to see you. Very solid advice. Yeah, I second that. So yeah, I guess in his area, yeah, like, I don't know. A lot of jobs say that experience is required, but they're, you know, like, if you have, I don't know, I think they're just kind of looking for, you know, like a certain level of aptitude, right? There's no way to, like, gauge your aptitude. You've never done the job before, but if you go in there and be like, oh, I understand, you know, what this job entails, with some like knowledge of what you're going to be doing, right? Like they'd probably give you a pass on that. But a lot of places like where I'm at, like you have to be licensed to be a bartender. So you have to go do like a course. So you would necessarily already have training in the field. Like, but you have to do that pretty much like any food and beverage position here. But like, especially if you're serving alcohol, like there's more to it, right? And then they actually teach you how to like pour the drinks, and it's called mixology or whatever. Todd says it came fully out of me. It takes time to teach, and time is money. Yeah, for certain. And you usually have to pay to get those certificates or whatever. Not too much, but a modest fee, and then you have to pay to renew them. So I mean that's to be expected.
Early, so there was no patrons there. There was no customers, and I said, "Hey, is the manager here?" The owner of the bar comes there, sitting there doing some payroll. Like, hey, man, so I saw your ad on Craigslist. I don't have any experience, but I'm willing to learn. I'm good with people. He says, you know what? Usually we want people with experience. I was really hoping we had someone with experience, but I'm going to give you a shot. So he gave me a shot. I worked there for a little over 6 months. That was my first MILF experience. She was 36 years old. I don't know if I've told this story before, but there's very many lessons to learn from an old.
James Apperson, good to see you, my friend. Doug said I can't own a bar being a felon, damn Capone, but my wife can. Yeah, it's loopholes.
Woman. Anyway, I don't think you should date older women. That's a different story. But there's lessons to learn. Okay. So, I get the job. I just get the freaking job. I start learning how to pour a beer. You learn on the fly. Dude, nowadays, you got AI. Okay? Back then...
No, I mean, there's definitely a lot more to being a bartender than just learning to pour beer. I mean, that's probably like... just learning to pour beer or how to uncork a wine without fucking it up, that's like the ground level, and then you actually learn to mix drinks properly. That's next level bartending. But I guess you could just do some basic jobs if you just know how to pour correctly.
You had Google, you had YouTube. Nowadays there's no excuse to learn on the fly. So
Tog says, I want to date older women. Sandy, I step away to get a shower, and what have I come back to? Yeah, we're still here. He was talking about his first MILF experience, and it was a 36-year-old, and he was cautioning men away from dating older women. And I wanted to comment on that. I'm not sure how old this guy is, but most of my relationships have been with older women. And I've been so far as to I've been with a woman who's the same age as my mom, which is the oldest woman I've been with. So, but my mom, to be fair, was a young mother when she had me. So it's not that much older. It's less than a 20-year gap, right? But it's still up there. And those have been the majority of my long-term relationships. Now, I don't know if it's the healthiest thing. I don't know. I just don't have, that much experience with much younger women or anything like that. But I will say that within my age range, people within my age range, I don't tend to get on with them very well. And I don't think it works for me to date a woman my age, from my experience. So I will say that. I guess there's a cutoff. Sandy says, I'm 66 and my teeth do not come out. Chuckles. Oh, see, I don't know if that's we'll go there. I saw a meme, about that. And yeah, no, I mean, so my girlfriend has dentures. So, and it's nice. It's nice. I'll just say that. Top G, welcome. Good to see you. James Apperson says, fair Sandy, but do you bake cookies? But as a general rule, no. And you can make your own sandwich too. Oh, that's fun.
Okay, the resume the job requires this. You don't have.
I cook for my girlfriend. She cooks for me too, but I do a lot of the cooking. I enjoy it, you know. So there's that. You know, it's all about, you know, like a, you know, equal dynamic or whatever.
Whoopsie. A small typo, a small error. Whoopsie. Accidentally said that I know this and that. Learn on the fly, baby. Whoops. How much amazing stuff can happen when you don't worry about the repercussions. The repercussions, you just.
You know what? Actually, I think I made a mistake. Now I think I have dated one woman older than my mom. Kind of slipped my mind. One woman, yeah, that's true. And not that much older, just a little bit older. But yeah.
See your way through things, dude. Learn on the fly. Oftentimes, the consequences of you taking a bold action and removing yourself from the traps in your life, what happens is they open up an entire new world of freedom in a way to look at stuff. But I'll tell you this is why it separates you from 99%, because most people are men that were raised by anxiety-filled mothers, and they have spirit of women. In their mind, everything is about security. If you quit your job, if you don't get a good career path, you are a failure because you don't have security. Everything is based upon security. How secure can you be? How secure is your future? How secure are your investments? Think about your family in the future. How secure would they be? There's this security. Now, if you understand the masculine psychology, men don't think about security in this sense. It's not something that permeates our being. Men have this sort of vivacious demeanor. Okay, they're just this horniness combined with testosterone. You go in this world, it's like a hunt. You retard max a hunt. Me and the boys got to go hunt. We got to make a kill. We got to bring back food. Okay, we have to make things happen. That's it. That is our security, knowing that we can make things happen. So you start to take on this demeanor of the sex that is actually weaker. So they have to depend on men for security, but the men have become like women, and so everything we do is security. That is not where life is. Life is meant to be lived. It is meant to be discovered. It is meant to be conquered. It is the life of the short bus conquistador. So, in many ways, a lot of us have imprisoned ourselves with jobs that we absolutely despise, co-workers that we hate, friend groups that we dislike. We had a guy join today, lives in Austria. We also have another guy in our group from Austria. On the same exact day that this new guy joins, he says, dude, we live in the same town, let's hang out. An hour ago, he posted a picture, they're freaking.
Shit, now I gotta go check the stream. It flipped on me. Sorry, I was off for a second. That's alright, we can, this man has some interesting ideas. It's Elisha Long. I'd never heard it before. I just came across this video, came recommended to me, and I decided I needed to give that a look-see. So I'd never heard it before. I just came across this video, came recommended to me, and okay. See what JG's doing. I noticed he was live. Oh, that's music. Here's Todd. Shift gears here a little bit. I want to check out this video as well.
Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max. Together for $16.99.
Says from Breaking Down Patriarchy, obviously, is male dominance in our DNA?
Since the dawn of recorded time, the vast majority of human societies have been led by men. And that raises the question, is patriarchy just the natural way of things? I'm Amy McPhee-Allabest, and today we're going on a journey through time to answer that question.
Wait, Amy what? What's her name? I'm sorry,
Since the dawn
It's a social
of
construct? I think I'd agree with that.
recorded time, the vast majority of human societies have been led by men. And that raises the question, is patriarchy just the natural way of things? I'm Amy McPhee-Allabest, and today we're going on a journey through time.
Amy McPhee-Allabest? Is that her name? What?
To answer that question. Let's start with our DNA. The two closest relatives of humans, genetically speaking, are chimpanzees and bonobos. But although these two animal groups are genetically almost
I
identical,
got a very unflattering picture of that bonobo. He should complain. He should talk to management about that.
their behaviors and social structures couldn't be more different. Chimpanzees are highly patriarchal. Among chimps, it's the males, and more specifically one alpha male, who acts as the leader, determines where the groups move, how they hunt and gather, who gets to mate with whom, and how they
It's weird how they have thumbs on their foot, too.
interact with one another on a daily basis. Chimpanzees are also notoriously violent, and it's not uncommon for them to attack and kill other chimps. Bonobos, on the other hand, are primarily matriarchal. At the top of every bonobos community is one old and experienced matriarch who presides over a small coalition of high-ranking females with maybe one or two males mixed in. In general, relationships are positive. They share food and territory, and there isn't much fighting even between different communities.
Bonobos, like in contrast, like bonobos do a lot more fucking, though, right? That's the feature that stands out in bonobos is they have a lot of sex.
The male becomes aggressive with the female, a group of female bonobos band together to physically punish him, making sure he doesn't get out of line again. Even though female bonobos are typically smaller than males, they figured out how to work together, and they use their combined power to create a mostly peaceful society where violence is extremely rare. Many scientists point to the bonobos as evidence that patriarchy isn't simply the natural, inevitable social structure for primates, and that perhaps Homo sapiens could have chosen another way. So what systems did our earliest human ancestors create? 7 million years ago, a primate called Sahelanthropus chidensis developed a trait that would change the course of history forever. It began walking upright. Over time, this upright posture led to a narrowing of the female pelvis and birth canal. As a result, in order for their heads to fit through the birth canal, babies started to be born at an early gestational stage. These newborns were completely dependent on their mothers for a much longer period than other primates, requiring several years of constant care as opposed to only a few months for other primates. Now skip forward to the descendants of those upright walkers. Homo sapiens, or wise humans as we've called ourselves. Over 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens began to harness the power of fire, shape tools, and paint stories on the walls of caves. These early humans were hunter-gatherers, where everyone had to pitch in to ensure survival. There was most likely a rough division of labor, with males performing much of the hunting, and females, at least during their fertile years, giving birth and taking care of those adorable, helpless babies that we just talked about. Women also contributed to human survival through their knowledge of plants for food and medicine, and the creation of clay and woven vessels that contained that food and medicine. At the same time, these roles may not have been as divided as we might think. For example, in 2020, the remains of a 9,000-year-old big game hunter was found in the Andes. This hunter was buried with specialized tools for hunting big game, and while there was nothing particularly unusual about the body, researchers noticed that the leg bones seemed a little slim for an adult hunter. When scientists analyzed the tooth enamel for DNA markers, they discovered that the hunter, whom they had assumed was male, was actually female. Because of this discovery, they went on to test the bodies of 26 other hunters, and they found that 10 of them were female. It's also important to point out that even if hunter-gatherer groups did divide labor by sex, that doesn't necessarily indicate that one gender was telling the other one what to do. Anthropologists agree that despite their different biological functions, early human societies seem to have been egalitarian. So let's pause here and define egalitarianism. Egalitarianism is a belief in the equality of all people, especially in political, social, and economic life. So, what happened when these wanderers began to settle down and form cities? Did they ever form matriarchies? Some scholars believe that they did. The world's oldest official city is a settlement in modern Turkey called Çatalhöyük. It was inhabited between about 7,500 and 5,700 BCE during the Neolithic era. For context...
All right, I don't know what's going to happen here. Oh, wrong one. All right, we're about 5 minutes in. Let me eat real quick. I have to go downstairs.
That's 5,000 years before the pyramids were built in Egypt, and at least 4,000 years before Stonehenge was built in what is now the UK. Prior to excavations in Çatalhöyük, Bronze Age societies were thought to have been the oldest advanced civilizations. One Bronze Age civilization was called the Minoan civilization on the island of Crete, which flourished from about 3000 to 1100 BCE. And although the people of Çatalhöyük and the Minoans were far away from each other and flourished in completely different time periods, they had a lot of important things in common, one of which was art and artifacts depicting women. Like, a lot of them. When archaeologists first began excavations of Çatalhöyük, one of the most important objects they found was a statue that they named the Seated Woman of Çatalhöyük. And I actually have a replica of her right here. Here she is. Look at her with these large animals under her control on either side. She looks strong and powerful and grounded in her body. I feel like you can't look at this seated woman and not feel her commanding presence. Figures and paintings of females like this and this and this were also found in overwhelming numbers all over Neolithic and Bronze Age archaeological sites all across the Middle East and Europe. But because very few of these civilizations left behind written records that we can understand, we don't know exactly who these female figures were, nor what they meant in their respective societies. At first, some male archaeologists thought of these images as prehistoric pornography.
What did you say?
But scholars such as Maria Gimbutas thought of them as goddesses. In fact, Gimbutas dedicated her life to studying and comparing these female-focused societies. In the 1960s and 70s...
So I will say, I mean, like, I know as far as the goddesses, and probably where she's going with this, and with like a lot of these images, and what the common interpretation has been, is usually like, they've got like, the features are basically like ability, right? So like representing like good fertility and something like that. Like that could be also just like a male interpretation there too. But I think that's what's been commonly said about images like that.
Gimbutas' theories gave rise to a spiritual goddess movement with
"You are a goddess, my awesome wife."
many women proclaiming the supremacy of the ancient goddess and reclaiming woman-centered spirituality. Some even started referring to these prehistoric cultures as matriarchies. Remember that if patriarchy means that boys and men have a birthright to preside over women, then a matriarchy would mean that girls and women have a birthright to preside over boys and men, the way bonobos do. So what do you think? Does archaeological evidence indicate matriarchy? I would say there's just not enough evidence. As compelling as these goddess images are, and as much as some women have longed for a matriarchal past, Most scholars who have written about these societies, including Gimbutas, have argued that the worship of goddesses doesn't necessarily indicate high status for women in their everyday lives, let alone matriarchy. One point that makes a lot of sense to me is from historian Gerda Lerner in her book, The Creation of Patriarchy. She points out that if archaeologists of the future were to excavate sites from the Middle Ages in Europe, they would find thousands of statues of the Virgin Mary and other female saints. And that might lead them to think that medieval Europe had been a matriarchy. As we all know, that was far from true. So if these early human societies weren't matriarchies, what were they? Social scientists?
Yeah, I mean, there've definitely been, like, demonstrably, there have been matriarchal societies in history, right? They're just much less common. But the reverence of the female form and female characters in history kind of comes and goes, I guess.
Dr. Rianne Eisler calls them partnership cultures. And what's a partnership culture? I called Dr. Eisler to have her explain it to us. Hi, Dr. Eisler. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about partnership cultures, just some of the features that were found in the Neolithic period.
For millennia, we humans oriented more to the partnership side. We don't see the ranking of the male form over the female form and very rigid gender stereotypes. As the archaeologist Ian Hodder, who excavated Çatalhöyük, as he wrote, there are no signs that being born male or female made any difference in status or in wealth. There are no signs of destruction through warfare. But what does this indicate? A belief system in which interconnection is more important than ranking.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Now back to the ancient city of Çatalhöyük. Before it was excavated, it had been the assumption that prehistoric cultures were all male-dominated. But Çatalhöyük challenged that assumption. For example, the bones of these ancient people showed evidence that everyone's diets were similar.
For 10 years I worked at a sign shop. It was really fun, creative.
Bones of these ancient people showed evidence that everyone's diets were similar. Their graves and their burial practices showed that men and women were buried with the same amount of wealth. The size and setup of their houses, their sleeping places, their places of gathering all indicate that there
Sandy said they understood women are essential and valuable and they honored them, unlike today. Yeah. Mind-blowing.
were no gender-based hierarchies in Çatalhöyük. Similarly, the Minoans also challenged the idea of male dominance throughout history. Evidence in art, architecture, and burial sites on Minoan Crete demonstrate an equitable sharing of wealth, access to advanced technology such as drainage and sanitary systems for all people in the community, as well as daily activities and rituals that promoted harmonious and peaceful living. All features of a partnership society. So if there were many ancient civilizations that were egalitarian partnership cultures, we have to ask, what happened to them? In her book, The Living Goddesses, Maria Gimbutas posits that eventually these partnership cultures were conquered and slowly eroded by what she calls dominator cultures. So let's check back in with Dr. Eisler so she can explain some features of dominator societies.
It's really a domination system, starting in families. You have these rankings of domination. This is where we're socialized to think only of two possibilities. You either dominate or you're dominated, and it's backed up by fear and by force.
The conquest that eroded partnership societies happened in many different places over the course of centuries. And there's lots of disagreement between scholars about when and how patriarchy began. So there are multiple theories, and archaeologists are still trying to put the puzzle pieces together to figure out what actually happened. But however it developed, historian Gerda Lerner notes that These new practices probably developed slowly and organically, and that neither men nor women knew the consequences that would come of these initial choices. Women may have agreed to a sexual division of labor, not being able to predict the ways in which it would eventually disadvantage them. And most men were probably not plotting the subjugation of women on purpose. But she also notes that whether it was on purpose or not, patriarchy did indeed entrench itself. And the lasting psychological damage of the patriarchal state is that it made patriarchy seem normal, even natural, in the same way that class and racial oppression have historically been framed as natural by those in power. So that brings us back to our original question. Is patriarchy just the natural way of things? Well, to summarize, here's what we know. Humans' closest primate relatives are both patriarchal and matriarchal, and some scientists point to this as evidence that Homo sapiens could have gone either way. Next, the earliest human societies do not seem to have been patriarchal. They weren't matriarchal either, but they were egalitarian partnership cultures. Many scholars also point to that as evidence that humans aren't naturally patriarchal. At the same time, dominator cultures seem to have overthrown partnership cultures all over the world, establishing a long history of patriarchy. Is patriarchy just the natural way of things? I would ask, what if it is? Guess what else is natural? Disease. And social hierarchies that persecute humans that look different or behave differently or think differently.
Hey, Bond, good to see you. Sandy says, I've actually known this history for a while, but bringing it up in today's world just starts an argument, and I'd rather not. Yeah, I think it's an important argument to have, though. I think it's an important conversation to have.
Differently exist in every
I would definitely say there's some things in this video that I was aware of and some things I was not, as far as like historical reference and stuff like that. But I mean, generally, yeah, I mean, I think I like the way this is leaning as far as being informative, but it does make a statement like about being egalitarian and how the abilities of people aren't determined by factors like this, like biological sex or race or anything like that. Hey, Will Freeman, good to see you.
Society all over the world. So you could argue that that's natural too. Listen, we're now wading into timeless and super controversial territory about human nature. And while I'm personally very interested in the scientific data and the ongoing philosophical analysis, to me the more important question is, whether it's natural or not, what are we going to do about it?
I'm just here to agree with whatever is said, Bond, and leave a like. Appreciate the like. Thank you. And make comments for the engagement. Yes. As I said earlier, I'm running a little lower on time now, but I did create a StreamYard stream. If anybody wants to have a conversation, may have a bit of time left, and if anybody expresses interest, I'll pop over there and open up a StreamYard panel. But other than that, I was just kind of killing some time over here right now and hanging out and getting through some of these videos I've been waiting to check out. So, done with the chores, mostly. I got a little sidetracked. But.
What does a lifetime warranty mean? At Harbor Freight, it means confidence.
Do you find in your life, this is a quiz I give a lot of people, more people you know personally talking about God than you did, say, 10 years ago?
Yes. And I am that person. I mean, I was an atheist 10 years ago.
What happened?
I had my daughter.
Yeah.
That's, as I found God the day my wife delivered our first.
He had a kid and became religious, which is like the opposite of my story. Right. If anything, like for me, when I had my first kid, it solidified my atheism more than ever. like where I would have called myself an agnostic before that. By the time my kids had any questions about religion, I would just tell them outright that I'm an atheist. So completely the opposite from my experience. Let's see what this guy says. Sandy says, I've had a really good day and I'm going to keep it good. No urge to argue. Hey, I feel you there.
Child, and which is a fairly common experience. I know other people who have had the same thing, were atheists until that moment. And
what changed in you?
So, all right. So it was basically, so I met my, so, you know, it's a fairly normal story, but I met my wife and we got engaged and then we got married. So my wife's like the most amazing chick. She's just great. And I know it's always a thing to say. It's like my wife's better than your wife type thing. But everybody who knows my wife, I don't mean you, I've never met your wife, but she is better. And just kidding.
No, I don't hear people compliment their spouses enough, actually. I don't think everyone always says that. I wish people said that more often.
Well, I do. You know,
by that, what do you mean? Men complimenting their wives?
Oh, it's not me. She's really just the best. Everyone who knows her would agree. I mean, like, it's just like she's like the most amazing woman. She's just gorgeous, and she's really super smart, and she's really sweet and kind. And she's just like she puts everyone above herself. She's like I really hit the lottery with her.
Like the most Christian person you know. So it wasn't actually your kid that converted you. Presumably, it's probably the wife.
And I kind of always had this view of like, you know, women are trying to change you or trying to control you. Every girl that I ever dated always wanted a relationship, and then they always wanted me to not do this or not do that. And
yes.
My wife was she just had my back. She just always like wanted to make my life better, and she did. And I fell in love with her.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this woman. And so then when she got pregnant, I was just very excited. It was like, you know, you just got married, got a baby on the way. I was just like, this is the best. Like, I'm really excited to do this. And I was right. It was the best thing I've ever done. And so the day that was, she was over her due date. So then they scheduled to come in to induce pregnancy because they don't let you go too long these days, which I guess is maybe they're right about that. I don't know. But anyway, so we go to the hospital.
They get the Pitocin out.
Yes, that's right. So we're at Lenox Hill Hospital in the upper.
Yeah, because the head gets too big, you get squished in the birth canal. It's messy.
Side of Manhattan, and by the way, I should add, just leading into the story, I had been like a militant atheist when I was younger. I had started
a militant atheist. So he was like, I was kind of an atheist. Now he's like, I was a militant atheist. Like an anti-theist?
Open up my mind a little.
I don't know.
But to being like, I was seeing some of the holes in the atheist arguments, but I still was not like a believer.
Did my stream fuck up again? You guys didn't tell me. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna know. No, all right, we're good. You guys didn't tell me.
At Les Schwab, our above and beyond service means more hustle.
Had started to open up my mind a little bit to being like, I was seeing some of the holes in the atheist arguments, but I still was not like a believer in God. And so we were at Lenox.
What are the holes in the atheist arguments? I'm just curious
hospital
here.
And this was the first one. This is how it started. Was the anesthesiologist came in to give my wife an epidural, and at Lenox Hill, or at least this guy, they asked me to leave the room. They said they ask the fathers to leave the room when they do it, you know, because they're putting a spinal thing in, and
that's not where they do epidurals. And I've been there for at least 2 of these, and they have not asked me to leave the room for an epidural. So I don't know. It's weird.
Be very, very precise.
It's horrifying.
Yeah,
see it,
right.
Yeah.
So like, and they don't want. I guess they don't want you there to react because then she might react.
Exactly right.
And so they don't want to. So I go at,
and she can't see what's happening.
Never heard of that before in my life. I'm wondering if this guy was already like a nervous wreck to begin with, and that's why they're like, please leave. You know,
right? She can't see, but she could see you seeing, and so they want people with a straight poker face who have seen this a lot of times.
No, they can just do it with the patient's back turned towards you, and even then, it's literally a fucking, you know, like an injection.
And are not watching it happen to their wife and baby, you know. So it's a reasonable ask. But so I go out, and I'm in the hallway in the maternity ward at Lenox Hill Hospital. And and it just hit me. It was like for the first time, I guess I had not really thought about this. I was just so excited to get my family started. But for the first time, it hit me that like something could go wrong. And that I could...
Oh, well, that's stupidity. Like, if you didn't realize that something could go wrong to begin with, you shouldn't have been in that situation, sir.
Leave here alone. You know, like something could go wrong, that I could lose the baby, I could lose my wife, and it's totally out of my control. And like, as this started hitting...
That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, he hadn't even thought about this until he was like there with a woman near term, and he's like, oh, wait. I could lose them. Holy shit.
Started, like, really getting emotional. And it's like I'm out there and I'm crying in the hallway of this maternity ward. And immediately I just started talking to God. And I just started...
Bro, really? I just started talking. Well, I mean, that would be a situation you might pray in, I guess. Yeah, sure, why
not? Just talking to God, but like negotiating with God. And I was just like, you know, like, dear Lord, if you make sure that they're okay, I'm going to do, like, I'm going to be the best husband and the best father.
I mean, you realize the most likely outcome is they are going to be okay, right? She doesn't have any, like, pre-existing health conditions, no bad experiences with pregnancy in the past, right? Like, the most likely outcome is that it's going to be okay, right? It's not because you prayed, right? You just had a healthy wife and baby, you know? Like, some people don't have that luxury.
And I will do this, and you know, like all the different things in your life.
Had you ever prayed before?
No, never once in my life.
Never prayed before this time. Don't believe him. I think he's a liar.
All, you know, like all the things that you know you're supposed to be doing that you're not doing that well. You know, like I was like, okay, I'll clean this up. You know, I'll call my mom more often. I'll do this thing. And so anyway, so I just started like praying to God, and not just praying, but like negotiating. So anyway, everything was fine with that. But my wife, this was the first of many times. There were a bunch of complications in the pregnancy. Everyone came out okay, thank God. But so I ended up talking to God a lot that day. And then just like, as the days went on.
It's so interesting. It's organic.
Well, that's
a lifetime of not believing, and then you just start
And so
praying.
This is almost like what intellectually, you know, converted me later, was I was like, hey, what the hell was that? I mean, I can't look back and just ignore that.
Here's the facts of life.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and go there. It's been fun. It's been real. We'll finish this later. All right. Well, much love. Be kind. Be well, and stay trusty. See you on the flip side.